Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I am here with the next installment of 31 Days of Tarot, hosted by Ethany. And today's prompt is for day 24, which is to share our top 5 tarot books of 2019, going all the way back to 2010. So top 5 tarot books for the last decade. And for the purpose of this prompt, I have interpreted the prompt as meaning books published within that time. So not only are these books that I've, of course, read within the last decade, but they're also books that have been published within the last decade. So I haven't included some books that I read the last decade that were older tarot books, which I also loved, but just didn't quite as neatly fit into this prompt. So I have limited myself to 5 and actually followed the rules of the day, which is something that is difficult for me, especially with something that I love as much as books. But you will know as well that I have quite the book to read list. If you watched my book pile of shame video from December, you know that I already have bought some tarot books that I haven't read yet that I plan to read this year. And my, list of books to read is long. So if your favorite tarot book isn't on my top 5, it may be just that I haven't read it yet. If you have a top tarot book of the last decade that you'd like to share, please do in the comments below. I'd love to hear if you've loved any of the books that I mention, or if you have any others that you think that I would enjoy. So this is a top 5 that is in no particular order other than the fact that they're in this order stacked on my table in front of me. Here we go, without further ado. The first book I will share is Untold Tarot by Freinkel Tishman. And I'm not going to say too much about this book now because I included some discussion of this book on day 8 of 31 Days of Tarot when I was talking about the book that I read in 2019 tarot book. But this book has made it onto my top 5 for the decade as well because it has stayed out on my table since I stopped reading it and finished it late last year. And that's a sign of a top book to me. That it's a book that I can have continued to refer back to continue to go back to the meditations that Lisa recorded, to go with the book, to look at some of the tarot reading activities that she's designed and included in the book. So this one really, I think, just came to me at the exact time that I was ready for it and needed it. And so it has really stuck with me right since I finished it. So that's Untold Tarot by Freinkel Tishman. Highly recommend this book. The second book that I have chosen to include for top books 2010 to 2019 is one that I'm sure everyone will be familiar with, and that's Holistic Tarot, an integrative approach to using tarot for personal growth by Benebell. And this book is massive. It is full of post-its. And besides this book being massive, there are also a lot of supplementary materials for this book. So there are suggested syllabi for like self-guided reading courses for beginner, intermediate, and advanced for learning tarot with this book. There are lots of extra downloads on Benebell's website that she very generously shares for free, with things like spreads and daily draw recording sheets and all kinds of things here. And the appendices are excellent. The index is excellent. This book is so thoroughly researched in ways that I really, really appreciate. Certainly, there are aspects to the ways that, Benebell reads the cards or describes them in here and the way that I understand the cards that are different. That's true of all the books, inevitably. Nobody's approach to tarot is identical. But this is a book that I've really gotten a lot out of. I continue to refer to that is a book that in ways I wish was just published earlier so that when I was even more of a beginner, this book and the beginner course syllabus that Benebell designed would have been something that was more to what I wanted. Though I did work through actually quite a bit of those intermediate and advanced reading lists that she suggests. And so this is not the kind of book that I would say is one that you read front to back, cover to cover. But I have read the very, very, very vast majority of this book, albeit not in order. So this is a really great book with tons and tons of resources in it. for learning all kinds of approaches to tarot and learning about how to read spreads. There's a set of card meanings. There's some ideas about personal journaling, tons and tons of material in Holistic Tarot. So if you haven't checked that one out, definitely do. Okay, the third book on my list is by someone that many or most or all of you may know from right here on YouTube, who has an excellent channel, and that is Tom Benjamin. And I have his book, Tarot on Earth, A Practical Approach to the Cards. And I love this book. And I think that for anyone who is interested in learning to work with Pip-style decks or Tarot de Marseille, that this book is crucial. I really believe that this book is the way to go. It is central to my having learned to work with Pip decks and Marseille style decks in ways that I am now comfortable and confident about. It's organized more so as a kind of course than a book itself. So you do read it cover to cover and work through it. But the chapters, for example, are framed as lessons. So you get some text, and then there's activities. You'll be making, when you work through this book, making a lot of charts, doing some of your own research beyond this book in order to really get into, for example, how you understand suits and the energies of particular numbers, if that's the approach that you take to reading the Pip decks, which is how I do. And yeah, there's not much to say about the book other than that it's excellent. And the lessons are interspersed with the lessons. There are some of Tom's kind of reflections as well. I still have all of the charts that I made on my computer of this, the activities that go in this book. And really, I think that if this book didn't exist, I don't know if I would read Pip decks and Marseille decks in the ways that I do now. So I'm really grateful for this book existing. I think, I can't recommend this book highly enough if you want to learn to read Pips or Marseille. And I think that this is a book, I came to this book as someone who was very familiar with and had been reading with Rider-Waite-Smith style decks, but not with Pip decks. But I do think that this book would be okay for someone who is a complete and total beginner to tarot and hasn't worked with any type of deck before and wants to start reading tarot but wants to start with Pip or Marseille decks. I think that this book would be fantastic for that reader as well. So Tarot on Earth by Tom Benjamin, highly recommended. The next book is actually another book that deals with Marseille style decks that I very much enjoyed reading and is full of underlines as well. And that one is Untold Tarot, The Lost Art of Reading Ancient Tarots by Caitlín Matthews. And so this is a really interesting book that I actually have had out because I think that some of the sections in this book might come in handy for me as I study Lenormand in the upcoming year, because it's very much a cartomancy approach to reading tarot. And there's a lot in this book about, for example, looking at significator cards, looking at how the cards interact with each other in terms of the figures in the cards, facing each other, facing away from each other, certain ones reading directionally, and all of these things I think will come in handy thinking about Lenormand. But this book, the images are beautiful. It is a full color book with so much, again, research. I am all about a book with thorough footnotes and a excellent bibliography that gives me so many more sources to track down, and a good index that makes working with the book a better, easier experience. And this book along with Tarot on Earth by Tom Benjamin, and the two books are very different, but along with Tarot on Earth, this book also was the other big contributor for me in my learning to work with Marseille style or Pip style decks. So those two books together. So Untold Tarot by Caitlín Matthews, definite recommendation from me as a top book of the last decade. And finally, I wanted to share one tarot book that was deck specific. The other four, of course, were not. Maybe system specific, but not deck specific. But there is one book that is a companion book that stood out to me as a deck of the last decade that I really, really love. And, you know, this one, it will depend on how you feel about the deck, of course, whether this is a book that will be of interest to you or not. But that book is the Deviant Moon Tarot book by Patrick Valenza. And you can see here it won some award for hardcover books there. And of course, this one's by Patrick Valenza, who created the Deviant Moon Tarot and Trionfi della Luna. And this one is published by US Games. And this book is just so beautiful. It's full color, of course, huge, detailed depictions of the cards. Of course, this one is sold separately. The deck does come with a little white book as well. But if you like the Deviant Moon Tarot, or even if you just like the style, you know, of the art, this book is fantastic because you really get a lot of text for each card. It really gets into the detail of each card and the particular kinds of ways that Patrick Valenza chose to depict each card in his deck, which is something that I really like when deck guidebooks do. You know, I don't want a guidebook that just is generic keywords for each cards. I want to know why the artist chose to depict, you know, particular cards the way that they did. I want to know, for example, why an artist would depict marionette-like figures on strings in a moon card, right? Which is a unique choice. And this book really gets into all of that. It also gets into the more kind of technical side of the creation of the deck itself, the mediums used. You get lots of Patrick's sketches. There are even some of his like childhood drawings here. There's a whole section on creating the deck, the process of that. This book makes an incredible like coffee table book for your house. Even if you have, you know, your friends and relatives over who are not into or knowledgeable about tarot at all, you know, the artwork on its own in this large format, you know, I think can be appreciated by anyone who likes this artwork. So that's the fifth book I chose, The Deviant Moon Tarot by Patrick Valenza. And I am looking forward to so much more tarot reading in 2020. I have, I think, 2 or 3 books already sitting in my pile of my plan to read for 2020. And I know there are more that I don't yet own but do absolutely intend to read. So again, let me know if you've read any excellent tarot books that you think that I should check out in the comments below. I love to hear your thoughts. And if you've loved any of the books that I've shared, do let me know that as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you back here tomorrow for day 25. Have a great day. Bye.